Man, is that all bird poop? Dang, Rain, you're worse than draconian drone laws in terms of flying the drone outdoors. I guess it'll continue for a while still, huh? I guess for things like drones, it was kind of fun reading this one. This one says, engineer builds a fully functional flying drone using almost nothing but Legos. Some of the most impressive custom Lego creations are models that actually do something, like AI-powered brick sorters, a life-size drivable go-kart, and even a machine that can solve Rubik's Cubes. But over on YouTube's Brick Experiment channel, they created what could be the first flying drone made almost entirely from official Lego parts. I don't know how accurate that is, because I still remember there's that other thing that you can actually buy where you build like a drone through Lego pieces, so to speak. So you can see in the person's video, basically they're experimenting trying to build this thing, and it says in the description, the motors, propellers, and frame are made of Lego. Non-Lego parts are the battery, radio receiver, and flight controller. And essentially it says after building it, he basically flew this quadcopter indoors and outdoors. And you can see from all the trials and tribulations, I guess he basically got it to work. Seems like it's, at some point it's kind of too heavy or whatever, or when he puts like the guy on it, for some reason it goes flying off. Do these specs mean anything to anyone who actually builds their drones? Like it says, motors is a Lego L motor 880031. Propeller blades for the Lego. The gearing, it says a 1:167 gear up for each rotor. From reading this, actually to me it's like, hey, cool, people should be able to do this. Experiment, have fun, who knows what it could bring out in the future. This is actually a way to help people, I guess, early on, where if they get excited about it, in the future they probably want to do bigger and better things. But basically for the weight, because that's usually what it comes down to for most regulations, like it says here, weight with battery 410 grams. Max thrust 470 grams. So technically this thing's illegal to fly, like if you had it here in Canada anyways. Unless you go through all of the registrations and stuff like that. It still reminds me of like that TED talk before. Someone said it was so ridiculous. He just wanted to fly with his kid, like this little tiny micro drone, and he pulls out like this whole aviation guide or whatever, like you have to do in the US with the FAA. It's kind of like the same idea. It goes a little too overboard and is too outdated with a lot of the drone regulations. Can you imagine that here as well, like in Canada, where technically every different piece of Lego drone you build, in this case, you have to pay money, like to register that? With that thought, it kind of raises the question as usual, are over-the-top drone regulations because of, say, safety concerns from the general public? Or is it commercial interests basically wanting to clear the skies for things like drone delivery, for example? So this article is kind of interesting. It says, drones, forget flying taxis. Here's how to win public support and make them benefit cities. It's easy to assume, perhaps thanks to all the lurid tabloid headlines, that people don't like drones. At best, they're a nuisance. At worst, they're a tool for idiots to close airports, ruin holidays, and cost the country millions. But the research Nesta Challenges has carried out over the past 2 years reveals a far more nuanced picture. The public and public services are actually quite open to drones being used more widely, including in cities, potentially the most challenging and controversial environment for them. But if this is to ever happen, there are challenges along the path to public acceptance. And these are not just the obvious ones around making sure operations are safe and reliable. People also care about what drones do, who is operating them, and where. That's a big departure from how traditional aviation is perceived. No one really cares what's in any given plane or what altitude. It's what route it's on and what airline it's owned by. So it's kind of interesting, as that thought is basically thrown around many times, where for some reason a lot of people are perfectly fine with some huge manned aircraft flying over their head, but like a little tiny drone, like it's the end of the world. And basically it says here, interestingly, while there were some minor level variations in how people thought drones could be used, there were several consistent principles. Generally, there was an interest in public sector uses of drones, for example, police and transport infrastructure, they say, and support for uses that promote social and economic equity, and some degree of support for cities having a say over or even control of drone traffic within their borders. But this support from cities, like support from the public, is tentative and conditional. Some of the wilder commercial applications of drones we have heard, from flying taxis to pizza delivery, found little favor. We believe that a continued push for potentially disruptive uses like these that bring little or no public benefit risk turning the public against drones. we could make the same mistake that were made with genetically modified crops in the 1990s or nuclear power in 1960s and 70s. In these cases, legitimate concerns about how technologies were used were ignored and public opposition hardened, even against applications with a clear and positive story to tell. That is actually a really fascinating thing to think about. What is the best use of the tech to actually make a lot of people realize, hey, it can be used in a good way? Because many times people do just come with the perception of what they see in the media, it's dangerous and all that. I just know from my personal experience, it basically just came down to capturing the right footage that that person could personally relate to. For example, if they're really into nature and so forth, the second they see some kind of outstanding nature capture that I have, then all of a sudden they change their mind. You can throw all the specs and all that at them, regulations, facts, how there's no deaths and all that, they just won't listen. But as soon as they see that one clip, like again, that they can personally identify with, then it changes everything. So that's one avenue, in my opinion, I don't see as much out there. Because usually it is mostly people like just say protesting and stuff with all the facts, whereas people do judge things emotionally, I guess you could say. Non-stop rain. Some nice kind of mist look too if it actually stopped. Huh. Guess it's the archive again, huh? Alright, see you guys later.